But when you see a Lego build, it's distinctively Lego, right? Like you can't look anywhere else and find anything that's close to being similar. And that's the power of a really well thought out design system, right? When you introduce a new brick to that system, you have to do a lot of thinking around where this brick will fit. And if it's not just for one set, it has to work for every set, right? So that's really the analogy that I find, and what you gain out of it. What's the impact of a design system is really scalability and speed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marcello. I'm here with Symon. We're founders of Tennis, a website design and product development agency. We're continuing the design system series that we started in the last episode. And to kind of dig one step deeper in this episode into design systems, what they are, how they're used, we've invited Avi to join us. The last episode, we talked a little bit about brand drift, what it costs, why it happens, and why companies that scale well fix it upstream. Today, we're getting into what actually is a design system. To help us get into this topic properly, we've brought in, like I said, we brought in Avi, who's a senior product designer at Intuit, a company that's been thinking about this longer and harder than a lot of other organizations. Thanks for joining us, Avi.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Before we jump in, tell us about your work. What does your day-to-day actually look like at Intuit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm on Intuit's design system team, and very specifically, I'm actually in a subset of our design system team called the GenUX team, which is responsible for creating an agent design system, essentially like an agent chat product. Chat is our main product, but really what we do is we provide a foundation for our brand teams to ingest an agentic experience and build off of that. So we give them a base layer of UI components that they can use out of the box to build their own agentic experience within their brand. So it's really cool because I am on a design system team that's not traditionally a design system team. We use design system components to build our foundational experience to then hand over to our customer, which is business units within Intuit. So it's a very interesting space. And of course, being in the space, we have to stay very close to trends in AI and AI chat and where things are going there. So it's a very, very exciting space to be in right now.
Very cool.
Cool. So it's like a subset of the primary design system specifically focused on AI and chat, but applied to all the different business units like TurboTax and Mailchimp and all.
That's
Very
right.
cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were going to say, Abby?
I was just going to say it's a platform, essentially, right? We're building a platform for our teams to use in their own experiences, right? So we don't want to say, hey, like this is how you should build your chat experience. We're giving them a foundation to say, here are the components, here's the plumbing. Bring your own agents, bring your own UI and theme it, right? But still staying true to our design system language.
That's cool. So your customers, you said, were the business units, but are basically divisions or products within the larger. Just for some context for listeners, so it's basically an enterprise level business with a lot of different products and services that are kind of like under the main brand. So you guys are really internally focused on your team, it sounds like.
That's right. Yeah, we're internally focused. We don't necessarily serve end users directly.
Got it.
We talk to PMs and other designers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They come to us and say, "Hey, we want our chat experience to be able to do this. Does your platform offer that capability?" And then we start collaborating with them if we already have it, or if we say, "Hey, like that feature that you're looking for in your chat experience is something that every brand in our organization could benefit from," then we work closely with them to add to our platform capability, right? So it's very much a platform design team, but we are housed under the design system team because it's basically how we govern the boundary of our agentic experience, right? I think we were at a point where when AI started to really take off a couple of years ago, there was a mandate within our org to really build your own AI experiences, right? And what happened at that point, I think, was like a lot of teams started building their own agentic experiences, and very similar to what that organizations, when you're trying to build individually, right, you start to see inconsistencies in the experience. So this was a way to bring it all together and say, hey, this is one platform, it's one chat experience, at least the foundation of it, right? uh, take take this and then build on top of that instead of having to build it from scratch. Here's a toolbox that you can use to then pull in to your
Very
experience and
cool.
build off.
Yeah, super
Yeah.
interesting.
Right. It sounds like you caught it at the right time before it scaled out of control. So,
Well, we hope so.
um,
We don't know.
we
Yeah,
don't
can
know
we
yet.
s Yeah.
I wanna take a couple steps back. So our listeners are kind of broad, like they could be business owners, ops leads, someone completely outside of design. So I
Mhm.
feel like the jargon of design system, design platform, like we throw it around all the time. But it'd be awesome to hear from you, like someone who's never heard the term before. Like, how would you explain what it is and why it exists to any of those people?
Yeah, so, I mean, I like using this analogy a lot. I love buying and building Lego sets, and, Lego is just like the perfect analogy for what a design system is, right? Each brick can be thought of as a component in your design system. There's only a certain number of them, uh, probably thousands at this point in Lego's design system, but they are conformed to a certain set of rules, right? That can be used to then build anything, really, right? But when you see a Lego build, it's distinctively Lego, right? Like you can't look anywhere else and find anything that's close to being similar. And that's the power of a really well thought out design system, right? When you introduce a new brick to that system, you have to do a lot of thinking around where this brick will fit. And if it's not just for one set, it has to work for every set, right? So that's really the analogy that I find, and what you gain out of it. What's the impact of a design system is really scalability and speed. I mean, I'm sure those themes come up a lot in design system conversations, but when you think about again thinking about Lego's business model now, right? They can license it to any brand. They can go to any kind of franchise and tell their story using Lego's design system, right? So I find that that's really the goal of every design system is to be so scalable that you've thought long and hard about what is the boundary you want to set for your components, right? And ensure that each component fits in with every other component that exists within that design system, right?
It's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, it
I
is.
really
No,
like
no,
that. The Lego system. Great. I'm gonna use that.
we'll
Yeah, I
be
mean that
stealing that
like
from you.
it's what I try to bring back to my work too, right? We always think about, should we add another token? Should we add another font style, right? But our design system team is our foundational design system team, who we work very closely with, as I mentioned. We really get into long debates about whether we need to introduce another, version of a font,
Mhm.
another spacing token, right? These are difficult conversations and they get very heated, but we have to have those conversations to ensure we're not just throwing something in because a single team asked for it, right? It again goes back to that analogy of like the squeakiest wheel is often gets greased first, right? You don't want that situation, right? You want to make sure that the entire system benefits from a minor change, what can be perceived as a minor change to a very large system.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. That's a good segue to my next question about like what a
Mhm.
design system actually touches inside an organization. So like it seems like when it's working, things are great. But you also just highlighted that it can also create some friction. And I'm sure there are pros and cons to that. Like maybe can you elaborate on the benefits, the drawbacks, how teams have to change how they operate when using a design system?
Yeah, I mean, the benefit is, I think, more obvious because the benefit is consistency and experience, right? If you are able to govern your design language in a way that everyone is consuming it at the same rate, then your experiences it builds trust with your customers, right? When there's consistency in the experience, but if something varies without a perceived intention, then it gives the indication to the users that something's broken, right? Something worked one way in one part of your product, but then works differently in another part of your product. And it seems like it's the same pattern, but it's slightly different. Users are very astute and are very impacted by those types of changes in their product experience. So the benefit of aligning to a design system is always that brand consistency, that language that is unbroken, right? But the I guess the downside is that you do have to think long and hard about what is going into your design system, as I mentioned, and that can slow teams down, right? Especially in the role that I'm in now, we're designing AI chat experiences, and as you know, that that world is moving very quickly. Claude is, launching a new version every week, and it seems like they're accelerating at a pace that no one's seen before, right? So for us to keep in time or to be in sync with those types of changes, our design system has to move quickly too. And that is where you now have to really aggressively test your design system in different ways, right? You don't have the luxury of like thinking on an addition to a design system component for months. You have to now condense that into making a decision within days, potentially, right? There is a lot of work to be done to go from that time period, from that longer time period to a shorter one. But I think it's necessary in today's landscape,
Yeah, that
right?
makes sense. Yeah. Does that all, so, that's a little bit of insight into sort of like the behind the scenes producing the design system on the customer
Hmm.
side, which is like the internal employees within the organization.
Hmm.
Does it actually help to resolve uh, conflict or collaboration between different teams and get to approvals faster?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it does allow you to kind of like again, it comes down to efficiency within that team, right? Because the team wants a certain experience, the internal team wants a certain experience within their product. If we're able to provide that out of the box, that means adoption for our team, right?
Mhm.
Like our platform team is able to provide something that another team is able to adopt into their product. But if it doesn't exist already and we can't build it quickly, then they might find it better for themselves to build it right on their own. In which case, we come across that risk of them not following the design system, right? Because they're having to hard code that functionality into their product, which we don't want to limit them from doing, right? If you find a way to enhance your product, by all means, you should be able to do it. But we also have to make it really easy for them to be able to ingest our design system so that they can stay within that boundary of that design language that we intend for the organization. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Are you approving stuff then that they decide to create on their own? Like, how are you getting involved to basically put some parameters around that?
It's always up to the BU. Like we are never part of what goes into their product. They're always like our philosophy is that, they're building the experience. We're giving them the capability, we're designing the capability, but really we're giving them the autonomy, right? They have, if they don't use the design system, then that's a signal to us that something on our design system is not serving the product, right? So we actually use that as feedback
Cool.
for us to work continually to improve and add on to, right?
Interesting. So they basically uncover the gaps in the system by building stuff on their own. And then
Yes.
you see the repercussions of that come back in, smooth things out. I love that iterative thing. It's
Yeah, and we also find that like it's a great way to build a pattern for our capability, right? Because if we find the same gap on multiple teams, then we can prioritize that feature and say, hey, multiple teams are trying to solve this problem in different ways. Here's a single unified solution that you can now take to address the problem that you have. And we try to also use this fixed versus flex model, right? Certain things um, we're very opinionated about from a capability standpoint, because again, we are a platform team. We can't make everything flexible. So we have to decide on certain things, right? That will remain fixed, but other things that are flexible, right? So one example I can give you is the capability of bringing in your own agent. That's a flexibility that we offer. But what's fixed is how we treat a message going into the chat, like a prompt will show up from the user will show up on the right hand side, and the response shows up on the left hand side of the chat. Those things you can't change, right? Those are patterns that we've decided on, that we've researched on, right? So those types of things are essentially, it helps us again govern those boundaries in a way that is still scalable for teams to come in and provide their own experience, or add their own experience to.
right. And that makes a lot of sense. I like having a distinction between what you're flexible on and opinionated on.
Hmm.
Um, so you've worked at a lot of different organizations, like small, medium, now this enterprise, and like for our listeners, they're companies with 20 to 200 people. So at your scale, it's very different. If you were talking to a smaller company or a medium-sized company, like what would be one of the things you'd warn them about so they didn't learn the hard way?
What I would warn them about maybe is, well, design systems are um, beneficial to a team of any size. It's important to know what your design system is trying to accomplish, right? A lot of times, I think you might have mentioned this in your previous episode. Is the designs A design system should not be treated as like a brand guideline, right? It's supposed to work with designers and engineers. It's a way for designers and engineers to have a common language, so that what the designer is creating is analogous to what the developer is building, right? So I would warn that, don't build a design system for the sake of building one. Really figure out what requires that common language within your organization. If a brand guideline is enough for your team, then that's all you need. But you have to make sure that everyone on your team has bought in to that design system, your version of that design system. So it does get difficult when you get larger, like when the organization starts to grow. You bring people on, and maybe they aren't aware that one team has created a brand guideline or a design system, so they feel like they need to create their own. So I feel like if you are going to commit to a design system, it it also needs to be communicated equally across the organization, that this is what we are using as our common language and as our source of truth, right? I think that's where a lot of organizations tend to break down, because they all buy in to the idea of a design system, but sometimes teams aren't talking to each other. So they all go in their own direction and create their own version of the source of truth.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. And like, how do you get people to actually commit to using this? Designers, developers, what sort of cultural, um, like, or governance mechanisms do you put into place to convince them?
I think it's the governance mechanism is less what I focus on. I focus on the ROI, right? The impact that you have from building a design system, and then seeing the exponential benefit of that is really what I tend to focus on. I've done this in my past at organizations at different levels, and that's always what seems to resonate is that if you give me the resources or the time to go ahead and build this system, this common language for the entire organization, you are going to see uh, X amount of productivity or X amount of ROI from that, right? And that is sometimes hard to fathom that a design system can 3 4x your productivity, but it has we have been I have been able to prove that with teams that weren't very knowledgeable about design systems,
Mhm.
right? That gets harder when you go to a more design mature organization, because at that point each team is, aware of what a design system can do. It's just that they would also like to have a say in the design system as well, right? So that's when you start to have to push back and say, no, we have to stick to our source of truth. So the conversation starts to shift depending on the size of organization. But I think in terms of, again, getting adoption, what we're doing on our team is the same, right? Like I'm trying to show the ROI of using this design system component as opposed to you going and build it, right? You can ship faster, you can build off of it faster, you can get to results faster. I think it's always important to talk about the return on investment when you're talking about design system. It has to be the same conversation.
Yeah, it always goes back to ROI.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had a funny comment on one of our videos about our comment on selling websites internally and how you have to convince the CFO about releasing a budget, right? There has to be an ROI
Right.
on it. And someone commented, being like, "Why does it always come down to ROI?" But it's just unfortunately the way it sort of works in organizations, right? Last question for you.
Yeah.
Someone listening to this is running a company, leading a team, and they've never really thought about a design system before. What's the one thing you want them to walk away understanding?
Um, I think again, if it's just seeing the impact, right? Like it's maybe hard for you to see the impact now because you don't have a design system yet. But once it's there, it just becomes easier it's like building your own language, right? I think it's a beautiful thing when your organization or your team speaks the same language, and that's a language that you can share uh, pretty easily when you have it documented somewhere, right? It's kind of like a very rich sort of like source text that you can go back to when there's debate around, what should our experience feel like? What should our brand guidelines say about our organization? All of those things, if it's documented somewhere, then it's hard to refute, right?
Hmm.
And when everyone's on the same page, the synergy that comes from that is just it's hard to replicate without one. So, and the other thing I will say is like now more than ever, starting a design system is easier, right? Like you have all these AI tools that can get you going with um, like when I first started building design systems, I'd have to do an audit of our entire product, put those screenshots together, see where the variances are, and it would take weeks. But now you can do that in a matter of minutes, hours, right? And have a working, testable design system that you can at least get started with. So So I think it's important that we at least try. If you're out there, if you're a solo entrepreneur, co-founder, business owner, just give it a shot, and it'll just elevate the value of your product, I would say.
Yeah, that's perfect. Simon,
Oh,
what's your takeaway?
I mean, I think I love the know why you need or why you want a design system, because I
Mhm.
think designers love the idea of a design system, but if they can't answer the why, if it's actually going to have ROI, then it's
Mm,
probably over engineering something that's not needed.
perfect.
That's true.
Yeah, I think mine is I really just like that Lego analogy. Like I think for people that don't really understand how a design system applies, it's perfect. You could
Hmm.
even add a layer to it and say, you're providing Lego blocks for 10 different
Yeah,
people to build something similar under controlled parameters. Like that's anyways, it's great. I
yeah.
think it's gonna help people a lot. Avi, where can people find you and follow the work that you're doing?
Well, I'm not very good at posting my work on social media, but I love talking about it. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, Avi Debnath, and yeah, love having conversations like this with like-minded designers, like-minded product people, business people. So hit me up.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have you as a recurring guest for design topics as often as we can.
Absolutely happy to be here. This is exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. In the next
Awesome.
episode, we're going to talk a little bit about how to know if you're ready to dive into design system and just a practical framework around how to actually start building one out. That's it for this episode. Thanks again. Thank you, Avi. And if you're interested in learning more, subscribe.
Thanks, Avi.
Thank
Take
you.
it easy,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Yeah.